What's going on, everybody? Down Falcons fan. Hope you guys are doing great today. The first live stream I did in a long time, to be honest. The live stream was in August, but that was 2023 actually. Jerry G, what's going on, man? Welcome to the stream. Alright, you guys are welcome. So, I'm going to be predicting the outcome. So, I'm going to be predicting the outcome of the 2025 season from week 1 to the Super Bowl. I'm going to keep it as unbiased as possible. And with that being said, let's start with week 1. So, I'm going to let PFF simulate the outcome. And if I need to make some changes, I will. So, week 1, here we go. Let's do remaining games of week 1, simulate. Okay. So tonight, the Cowboys take on the Eagles. The Eagles will be the Cowboys. Trading away Micah Parsons, that was a very terrible decision by Jerry Jones, and the Cowboys will live to regret their decision. Then we have Friday's game in Brazil. The Chiefs and the Chargers. I do think the Chargers will win. Then Sunday, the Bucks taking on my Falcons. This is going to be a very tough game. You know, the NFC South is always competitive. Both teams, they fight neck and neck. I initially going to say the Buccaneers are going to win, but now hearing that Vita Vea might be missing the game, I'm going to pick the Falcons to win. I will stick the Falcons now. I know in my prediction video I said the Bucks, but that was pre-recorded. Now it's on a Thursday. We hearing about Vita Vea possibly missing the game. I might stick to Atlanta now. I do think with the injuries, the Falcons could take advantage of that and win the game. Next up, we have Cincinnati versus Cleveland. Bruno re-signing Trey Hendrickson finally. I do think Trey Hendrickson, he's going to show out and possibly be the defensive player of the year. I do think the Cincinnati Bengals will defeat the Cleveland Browns. Next up is Miami versus Indiana. This could go either way, to be honest with you. This could be potentially Mike McDaniel's last year as a head coach. He might not even make it to week 18, if I'm being honest. Do I see the Dolphins being the Colts? Maybe. I do think Daniel Jones, he could have a resurgence here. But something tells me Miami might pull off the win. So I'll stick with Miami. Next up, we have Jacksonville and Carolina. I think the Panthers will be a little bit better than what people give them credit for. They drafted Teddy McMillan in the first round. I do think Bryce Young, after his late season surge, he could show why he was the number 1 pick back in 2023. Battled the 2 number 1 picks in 2021 and 2023 respectively for Trevor Lawrence and Bryce Young. I'm going to give Carolina the edge here, actually. I do think Carolina could beat Jacksonville. All right, next up we have New England Patriots versus Las Vegas Raiders. That's interesting. 2 new head coaches making their debuts. What do we think of this? Pete Carroll with the Raiders, the New England head coach. It's going to be spicy. You know, Geno Smith, he is a very solid and capable quarterback. And you have Drake May. What do we think of him? In his second year, does he pan out? Does he have a breakout season? Nobody knows. So what do you guys think? Do you think that the Titans, excuse me, the Patriots will have a good year? If anything, I do think the Patriots are going to win. I do think, yeah, this will be a very good game for the Patriots. Mike Vrabel, former New England Patriot, back home against his team. I do think the Patriots will have the edge here. Then we have Arizona and New Orleans. Okay, so we have one of my Saints viewers, Jerry G, watching this show. So I'll say this: I do think the Saints they have talent. I do believe the Saints they still have talent on the squad, and I do think they can win some games. Kellen Moore, Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator. I do think he's going to have a philosophy for the team. He will be able to give the team some wins, not playoff caliber, but also not in the top five. But and still is in the range of drafting a quarterback if they're going to go that route. Should Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shaw not be the answer? First game for Kellen Moore, there's going to be a lot of energy. I do think the Saints get the win in the first game under the Kellen Moore era. Alrighty, Pittsburgh versus the Jets. Justin Fields and Aaron Rodgers taking on their former teams respectively. Aaron Rodgers, the final season of his career, excuse me. What do we think of that? Does he win? Does Justin Fields get his revenge? Vice versa, does Aaron Rodgers get his revenge? That's going to be a big storyline. Nonetheless, I'm going to give Pittsburgh the edge here. Aaron Glenn, the former Lions defensive coordinator, I don't think Justin Fields is that good of a quarterback. That's just my opinion. I don't think Justin Fields is that good. All right, next up, the Giants and the Commanders. I don't think there need to be any questions asked. Commanders, they are a very solid team. Giants, I don't know what to think of them. Nothing they did makes me think they're going to be a good team. I bet they're going to be middle of the pack. So Washington will beat the Giants. Then you have the Tennessee Titans taking on the Denver Broncos. Cam Moore's NFL debut. Yeah. In Denver, the team that led the NFL in sacks with over 70. Yeah, that's a brutal awakening for Cam Moore. Expected to get sacked like 5 to 8 times in this game. This is truly a welcome to the NFL moment for Cam Ward. He will score his first NFL touchdown, but he's still going to lose. The Broncos will defeat the Titans. Next up, we have San Francisco 49ers versus the Seattle Seahawks. What do we think about the 49ers? Christian McCaffrey back from injury. Does he get injured again? I pray that he doesn't. He is a very talented running back. On Seattle's side, they have a very solid offense. Could they still win games? They got Cooper Kupp now, the former Los Angeles Ram. Cooper Kupp, he's still a very solid wide receiver. So who do we take in this NFC West showdown? I'm going to give the 49ers the edge here. Next up, we have the Detroit Lions versus the Green Bay Packers. I don't know. I don't think the offense is going to be in sync for the Lions in week 1 because they lost Ben Johnson, who's now the head coach of the Chicago Bears. and Green Bay acquiring Micah Parsons, one of the premier pass rushers in the league, he's going to wreak havoc for the Lions offensive line. And we don't know if Aiden Hutchins he'll be ready by week 1 either. That's also a thing to note. He tore his fibula last season. He missed a whole season, so we don't know if Aiden Hutchins will be ready to go week 1. So that being said, give me Green Bay. Then we have the Rams versus Houston, the Texans. This is a game that could go either way. I'm going to stick with the Rams. I do think the Rams are going to be better. Texas this game. C.J. Stroud. He had a slow year. He didn't have the best sophomore year, but I do think he's still a very talented quarterback. He has Stephon Diggs now. He has a strong supporting cast. I do think he'll be good, but week 1 is going to be a little rocky. He's going to take a loss. Then for Sunday Night Football, a very entertaining game. The Ravens and Buffalo. This is a dream AFC Championship matchup. So who takes it out? Is it Josh Allen? Or do I go Lamar Jackson? I'm going to go with... this could go either way. This will be a high-scoring game without a doubt. 2 very elite quarterbacks. Who do we go here? I'm going to say Baltimore. I think they get the edge. Last year, I believe they lost to the Ravens in the divisional round. I think they get their revenge. And then for Monday Night Football, NFC North Showdown. Minnesota Vikings versus Chicago Bears. Ben Johnson making his debut as the Bears head coach. And J.J. McCarthy making his official NFL debut. If you guys remember last season, he missed an entire rookie year due to torn meniscus. So now this is officially his first NFL game. So does J.J. McCarthy pan out? How does he fare in his first game as a professional quarterback? Expect some bumps and bruises. I do think the Vikings offense is incredible. Kevin Stefanski, one of the QB gurus in the entire NFL. I do think he has a chance to make J.J. McCarthy a good quarterback. And you have some star players on defense too. So who do we go here? Do we go the Bears or the Vikings? I'm going to go with the Vikings. I do think they take the edge. J.J. McCarthy gets a win in his first professional game. And we'll go from there. Alrighty, week 2. Let's simulate. Our next up we have week 2, Washington versus Green Bay. Interesting. Washington versus Green Bay. Who do we go here? Washington, I said they're going to be a very competitive team, but the Packers should not be slept on. I do think their offense is good. They drafted Matthew Golden in the first round. Again, got Micah Parsons. I do think the Packers will be a deep threat in the playoffs. I do think Micah Parsons wreaks havoc, makes Daniels uncomfortable. And the Packers edge out and get the win here. Then Baltimore, Cleveland, self-explanatory. They just get a big old beatdown. Cincinnati, Jacksonville, good old beatdown as well. Then we got Dallas and the Giants. Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston. I'm not sure who the Giants quarterback is. Nonetheless, whoever it is, I do think he'll be good. Maybe it's Jackson Dart. I don't know what to think about either team. I'm going to give the Giants the win here, just because Dallas, I don't see them winning a lot of games this year, especially trading away Micah Parsons, a huge mistake. Next up, we have Detroit versus the Bears. I can see Detroit beating Chicago, Miami beating New England. That's possible. Division games, it goes either way. I say Miami beats New England. Then we have New Orleans versus San Francisco. San Francisco is going to be a very tough team to beat. I think the Saints keep it close, but this one they're going to drop, unfortunately. Next up, we have the Jets versus the Buffalo Bills. Bills win, no questions asked. Then we have Seattle versus Pittsburgh. I'll give Seattle the edge here. Then you have the Rams versus Titans. Yeah, I can see the Rams beating the Titans. Then you have the Cardinals and the Panthers. Yeah, that's a win for Carolina. For the Cardinals. Then you have Denver versus Indiana. I'm going to give Denver the edge here. I do think their defense is still going to be very solid, and they get, the revenge. Not revenge, but they get the edge. Then you have the Super Bowl rematch, which is the Eagles and the Chiefs. Chiefs get their payback, revenge. Then you have a Sunday night football game. My Falcons taking on the Minnesota Vikings. This is J.J. McCarthy's first home game, and the Falcons are coming off a win against the Bucks. Do I see them beating Minnesota? I do think, with our revamped defense, McCarthy will face trouble. And we played them last year. We kept it close until the defense gave up in the fourth quarter. Maybe the Falcons win, but they just keep it close. All right, next up we have Tampa Bay versus Houston. Tampa Bay wins. Then you have the Chargers and the Raiders. AFC West showdown. Give me Las Vegas. Moving on to week 3. All right, Buffalo versus Miami. I do think Buffalo beats Miami. Falcons versus Panthers. I think the Falcons beating the Panthers. Then you have Green Bay versus Cleveland. That's a win for Green Bay. Houston versus Jacksonville. I want to give Houston the win here. Then you have Cincinnati versus Minnesota. I honestly see that as a lopsided win, but give me J.J. McCarthy. I do think he gets his second win in the NFL. Then you have Pittsburgh versus New England. This could go either way. I do think New England takes that one. Then you have the Rams versus Philly. The Rams played Philly into a wild card, if I'm not mistaken. Philadelphia beat them, so I think the Rams get their revenge. Then you have the Jets and the Buccaneers. Yeah, Bucks win that one. Indy versus Tennessee. Does Cam Ward get his first win in the NFL? Yeah, give it to him. Give Cam Ward his first win in the league. Then you have Washington versus Las Vegas. Washington will win that one. Denver versus Chargers. That's a winnable game for the Chargers. Again, division games, they're always neck and neck. Sometimes high scoring, sometimes low scoring. Give me the Chargers. Then you have the Saints and the Seahawks. I don't know. Do the Saints get the upset? I mean, they still have some stars on defense like Demario Davis and Cam Jordan. So, what do we do here? I'm going to give Seattle a home field advantage. They get the win. Then Dallas versus Chicago. Okay, Dallas, get your win. Cardinals versus 49ers. Okay, I could see that. Then you have Kansas City versus New York. That's an easy win. Then Baltimore versus Detroit. That's a really cool Super Bowl matchup I would love to see. I would love to see the Detroit Lions and Baltimore Ravens. Give me Detroit. Give me Detroit on that one. All right, week 4. And also mid-season, we will kind of look at the league as a whole. Okay, so week 4, Arizona versus Seattle. I do think Arizona wins. Minnesota versus Pittsburgh. Let's go either way. Pittsburgh wins. Atlanta versus Washington. We played them last year. Had Raheem Morris called the timeout, we could have beaten the Commanders and we could have been in the playoffs. So does Michael Penix get his revenge on Jaden Daniels? I'll say yes. Then you have New Orleans versus Buffalo. And PFF is going to get an upset. I don't know. The Buffalo Bills, they have home field advantage. Do I really want to trust that the Saints beat the Buffalo Bills? I don't really think so. They're going to keep. I think Buffalo will win. They're just more overpowered. Yes, I see Detroit beating Cleveland. Houston, yeah, I would say they beat the Titans. It's going to be a lot of growing pains for Cam Ward. He's going to learn that real fast. And Carolina versus New England. I think they get the win. I do think they get the win. Give me the Panthers. Then you have the Chargers versus the Giants. Yeah, I do think the Chargers are good. Then you have Philadelphia versus Tampa Bay. That could go either way. Tampa Bay would lose. Then you have Indiana versus the Rams. I'm going to say the the Colts upset the Rams. I do think we could see an upset. Then we have the Jaguars, the 49ers. Give me another upset. Then you have Baltimore versus the Chiefs. Baltimore gets their revenge. Then week 4 for Chicago, they get their first win under Ben Johnson. Green Bay versus Dallas. Michael Parsons returns home and beats the shit out of Dallas. Then you have the Jets versus Miami. I'll take the Jets in that one. And then Cincinnati versus Denver. Yeah, I think Cincinnati wins. Alrighty. Here you go. Week 5, the first bye week. So the Falcons, the Bears, the Packers, and Steelers are on a week 5 bye. Moving on, we have the 49ers and the LA Rams. I think the Rams take that one. Then you have Minnesota versus Cleveland. I do think Minnesota wins. Houston versus Baltimore. Yeah. Maybe Houston wins. I do think they could get the possible upset against Lamar Jackson. Then you have Miami versus Carolina. I do think Carolina wins. Then you have Las Vegas versus Indiana. I'll say Indiana wins. And the Giants at New Orleans. That should be a very winnable game for New Orleans. Then Dallas versus the Jets. Give me Dallas. I don't think the Jets are going to be that good this year. Then you have the Broncos taking on the Eagles. Maybe it's going to be a close one. But give me Denver. Then you have the Titans versus the Cardinals. I think Cam Ward gets the upset here. Then the Buccaneers versus the Seahawks. That could go either way. I think Tampa Bay wins. Detroit versus Cincinnati. Yeah, I do think Detroit wins. They're going to be hot and ready. Then you have Washington versus the Chargers. Yeah, Washington wins. New England Buffalo. Yeah, Buffalo wins. Then Kansas City versus Jacksonville Jaguars win. Alrighty, week 6. The teams on bye. Texans and Vikings. So you have the Eagles and the Giants. That's self-explanatory. The Jets versus Denver. Give me Denver. The Rams versus Baltimore. I think it's fair to say Baltimore wins. Then you have Dallas versus Carolina. Possibly a very low-scoring game. Dallas gets the edge. Then you have Indiana versus Arizona. I could take the Colts in that one. Then you have Seattle versus Jacksonville. Yeah, I get the win. Chargers versus Dolphins. Give me the Chargers. Then Cleveland versus Pittsburgh. Give me Cleveland. They get the upset in that one. Then you have the 49ers versus Tampa Bay. I'm going to say the 49ers. I do think the 49ers, they could get pressure on Mayfield. They still have Nick Bosa. They drafted Michael Williams. They still have to start on defense. All right, now you have Tennessee versus Las Vegas. That could go either way. I think Las Vegas gets the edge. Then you have Cincinnati versus Green Bay. Cincinnati wins. New England versus New Orleans. It being a home game, I could see New Orleans winning that one. Detroit versus Kansas City. That'll be another interesting Super Bowl matchup. I see Detroit wins. The Bills and the Falcons. The Bills will win this easily. We have no chance against the Bills. They have a standout offense, standout defense. And Washington will beat the Chicago Bears. I'm doing all well, Jared G. Thank you for asking. Appreciate you asking. I'm doing great. All right, and moving on to week 7. Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati. I don't know what's the hype around Aaron Rodgers so much. I think he's getting up there in age that he should just retire. I don't see the hype in Aaron Rodgers, honestly. All right, next. So, yeah, give me Cincinnati. Then you have the Rams versus Jacksonville. It being a home game, I guess Jacksonville gets to win. Then the Bears will beat the Saints. Miami versus Cleveland. Okay, Cleveland wins that one. Chiefs beat the Raiders. I can see the Eagles beating the Vikings. Panthers versus Jets. Give me the Panthers in that one. You know what? Actually, excuse me. Give me the Jets. Then you have New England versus Tennessee. I say Tennessee gets the win. Giants versus Denver. Denver wins. Colts versus Chargers. I do think Chargers win. Arizona will beat Green Bay. Washington beats Dallas. Yes, that's possible. I see the 49ers beating the Falcons. You know, Detroit versus Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay wins that one. Then you have Houston versus Seattle. Give me Seattle. The teams on bye this time are the Bills and the Ravens. Let's move on to week 8. Vikings beating the Chargers. Yes, that's possible. Falcons beating the Dolphins. Yes, I see that. Ravens beating the Bears. Yes, that's possible. Bills beating the Panthers. Possible. I see that happening. Cincinnati beating the Jets. Yeah, for sure. 49ers versus Texans. Could go either way. I'll go Houston. Then I have Cleveland versus New England. New England wins that one. The Giants versus the Eagles. Eagles win easily. Then divisional matchup. Saints versus Buccaneers. I'm going to say this. The Saints will split with each of their division rivals, but they're going to beat each of them at home. So The Saints beat the Buccaneers at home. So Dallas over Denver. Sure, give them the upset. Then Indiana will beat the Tennessee Titans. Sure. Green Bay versus Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers returns back home to Green Bay. Excuse me. He doesn't go back to Green Bay, but he plays Green Bay. Does he get his revenge on the team that drafted him? Yes. I do think that Aaron Rodgers is going to have a chip on his shoulder and he's going to get the upset against his former team. Then you have the Commanders versus the Chiefs. Another intriguing Super Bowl matchup. Give me the Chiefs. And the teams on bye, we have the Cardinals, the Lions, the Jaguars, the Rams, the Raiders, and the Seahawks. Week 9. So we have Miami versus Baltimore. I say they get the upset. If not, I would say they lose and Mike McDaniels gets fired. Then you have Chicago versus Cincinnati. Could go either way. I'd say the Bears get the upset. Then you have Detroit versus Minnesota. I think Minnesota wins that one. Green Bay versus Carolina. Carolina will lose. Then yeah, Denver versus Houston. That's a that's a win for Denver. Then the Falcons and the Patriots. One of the biggest storylines of 2025. Super Bowl 51 rematch, 28-3, you name it. Give me the Falcons. We get the upset over New England. We finally beat the Patriots. The last time we beat them was 1998, the year we went to the Super Bowl for the first time. Something has to change, and it changes now. Then you have the Niners versus the Giants. I said the Giants get the upset. Then you have Indiana versus Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh gets the win here. Then you have the Chargers and the Titans. Chargers will win that one. Rams versus New Orleans. Yeah, I see that's a lot for New Orleans. I say Jacksonville beats Las Vegas. Actually, yeah. Home game, Las Vegas will win that one. Then Buffalo versus Kansas City. Two teams always going neck and neck. Give me Kansas City. Then you have Seattle versus Washington. Give me Seattle in the upset. Then lastly, Cardinals versus Dallas. Give me the Cardinals. In week 9, teams on bye are the Browns, the Jets, the Eagles, and the Buccaneers. So now we have reached midpoint. Let's see where each team stands. In the AFC East, the Bills are in first place, a record of 6-2, followed by the Patriots of 3-6, the Jets 2-6, the Dolphins 2-7. AFC North is the Ravens 6-2, followed by 6-3 for the Bengals, Steelers 4-4, and Browns 2-6. In the AFC South, the Texans lead 4-4, followed by the Colts 4-5, Jaguars 3-5, and the Titans 3-6. Then the AFC West. You have the Chiefs 7-2, the Broncos 6-3, the Chargers 5-4, and the Raiders 3-5. In the NFC, in the East, we have the Eagles, 5-3. The Commanders, 5-4. Cowboys, 4-5. Giants, 2-7. NFC North is the Vikings, 5-3. Packers and Lions also 5-3. And then the Bears are last, 3-5. Then the NFC South, the Falcons lead 6-2, Bucks 4-4, Saints 4-5, and Panthers 3-6. Then you have the NFC West, 5-3, 5-3 for both the Rams and the Cardinals, followed by the Seahawks 4-4 and the 49ers 4-5. So let's see who makes it to the playoffs. Week 10. I do think, yeah, that should be a very winnable game for the Raiders. I think they get the edge and beat their division rival, the Denver Broncos. Atlanta beating Indiana, yeah, I can see that happening. Then division game, Carolina versus New Orleans. Carolina wins. The Bears versus the Giants. I say the Giants win. Houston versus Jacksonville. I say Jacksonville wins. Buffalo versus Miami. Miami wins, gets an upset. Then you have Baltimore versus Minnesota. I think Minnesota wins that one. Jets versus Cleveland. Couldn't care for either team. Cleveland wins that one. New England versus the Buccaneers. I say New England gets an edge here. Then you have Arizona versus Seattle. Seattle wins. Rams versus 49ers. 49ers win. You have Detroit versus Washington. Washington gets their revenge. Then Pittsburgh versus Chargers. I think the Pittsburgh wins. And then Green Bay versus Philadelphia. Give me Philadelphia. The teams on bye, we have the Bengals, the Cowboys, the Chiefs, and the Titans. We're now in week 11. All right, week 11. I see New England beating the Jets. I say Miami beats Washington. Falcons split with the Panthers. Buffalo beating Tampa Bay. Yes. Then Jacksonville beating the Chargers. I guess the Bears upset the Vikings. Green Bay versus Giants. I guess the Giants get the upset here. Cincinnati versus Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh wins that one. Houston versus Titans. I think the Titans win. San Francisco versus Arizona. I think San Francisco wins that one. Seattle versus Rams. Could go either way. I think the Rams take the win. Baltimore versus Cleveland. Baltimore wins. Kansas City versus Denver. I think Denver wins that one. Detroit versus Philly. I do think Detroit wins. Then we have Dallas versus Vegas. I'd say Las Vegas wins that one. The teams on bye, the Colts and the Saints. Okay, week 12. Houston versus Buffalo. I think they get the upset here. Baltimore versus the Jets. I say we see an upset. Then we have the Bears versus the Bears versus Aaron Rodgers. Does Aaron Rodgers still own the Bears after this game? Give me the Bears, and now Aaron Rodgers can no longer say, I still own you. Then we have Cincinnati versus New England. Yeah, I think New England wins. Give me New England. I think the Patriots will be very competitive throughout the stretch, throughout the end of the season. Then you have the Giants versus Detroit. I guess you could give the Giants the win here. The Lions offense could be quite shaky without Ben Johnson. We'll see what happens. Then Green Bay versus Minnesota. I think Green Bay wins. Indy versus Kansas City. We way to get the upset. Then you have Tennessee versus Seattle. Yeah, I could see Tennessee winning that one. Cardinals versus Jaguars. Yeah, Cardinals win. I can also see Cleveland beating the Raiders. Philadelphia beating Dallas. We will lose to the Saints in New Orleans. 4-7 Buccaneers. Buccaneers win that one. And yeah, 49ers beat the Panthers. So now we have the Broncos, the Chargers, the Dolphins, and Commanders on a Week 12 bye. All right, Detroit. Do they beat Green Bay? Yeah, I can see that happening. I guess Dallas beats Kansas City. They're going to be middle of the pack. Kansas City will be a playoff team for sure. Cincinnati being Baltimore, I can see that happening. Chicago versus Philadelphia. That's a winnable game for Philadelphia. Rams versus Panthers. Panthers will lose. I see the 49ers beating Cleveland. Houston beating Indiana. That's possible. I see New Orleans beating Miami. Falcons beating the Jets. That's possible. Arizona versus Buccaneers. Buccaneers win. Jacksonville versus Tennessee. Could go either way. Tennessee wins that one. Minnesota versus Seattle. I think Seattle loses. Chargers versus Raiders. I think the Chargers win that one. Then Buffalo versus Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think Pittsburgh win that one. Then yeah, Denver versus Washington. Give me Washington. And then Giants versus Patriots. Yeah, I think I can see the Giants winning that one. And we have no teams on bye. Week 14. We are moving along. The teams on bye, the Panthers, the Patriots, the Giants, and the 49ers. All right, to start off, we have the Lions and Dallas. I think that Dallas loses. I think Seattle beats Atlanta. Baltimore beats Pittsburgh. I think Cleveland beats Tennessee. I think Chicago beats Green Bay. Indiana versus Jacksonville. Give me Jacksonville over that one. Washington beating Minnesota, plausible. The Jets beating the Dolphins. Buccaneers beating the Saints, yes. Denver versus Las Vegas. Yeah, I think Denver wins. Then you have the Cardinals versus Rams. That's a win for Arizona. Buffalo versus Cincinnati. That's a win for Buffalo. Then you have the Chiefs versus Texans. Chiefs win. Then the Chargers versus Philly. I think the Chargers get the edge here. All right, Thursday Night Football. I do think the Buccaneers get the revenge on the Falcons. Then you have Cleveland versus Chicago. Could go either way. I think Chicago wins. Or maybe Cleveland. I think Myles Garrett, he's still a very solid player. He's going to give the Browns enough wins, but he needs a lot of help. I think Cincinnati beats Baltimore. Arizona and Houston. I think Houston wins. Then the Jets beat the Jaguars. Chiefs beat the Chargers. Buffalo beat New York. New England. Washington beating the Giants. Vegas getting the upset on Philadelphia. Interesting. Maybe. Maybe they do. Then you have Green Bay versus Denver. I could see that as a win. Then the Rams versus Detroit. Yeah, that's a possible win. Then New Orleans will beat the Panthers. Then Indiana versus Seattle. Yeah, they'll go either way. Indiana wins. 49ers beat the Titans. The Vikings beat the Cowboys. And the Dolphins beat the Steelers. Week 16. Seattle versus Rams. Seattle wins. I think Chicago gets a win over Green Bay. I think Philadelphia gets a win over Washington. I would say New England gets a win over Baltimore. Carolina versus the Buccaneers. That could go either way. I think the Panthers beat the Buccaneers. Then we have Cleveland versus Buffalo. They might get the upset. Then Chargers versus Dallas. I think Dallas will win that one. Jets versus New Orleans. I think the Jets win. Minnesota versus New York. That's a win for them. Then we have Kansas City versus Tennessee. That's a win. I think we beat the Cardinals. Denver versus Jacksonville. Denver wins. Detroit beating Pittsburgh. Raiders beating the Titans. Cincinnati beating Miami. And San Francisco beating the Colts. Week 17. It all is getting spicy. All right, Dallas versus Washington. Washington wins. Detroit versus Minnesota. Minnesota wins. Kansas City versus Denver. I think Denver wins. Seattle does beat Carolina. Arizona versus Cincinnati. I think Arizona wins. Baltimore versus Green Bay. I think Green Bay wins that one. Houston versus Chargers. I think Houston wins. I think the Giants beat the Raiders. Pittsburgh beats the Browns. I think Indy beats Jacksonville. I say Tampa Bay beats Miami. New England beats the Jets. I think Titans beat the Saints. Eagles beat the Bills. 49ers beat Chicago. And Rams beat my Falcons. Here we are, season finale. Alrighty. Falcons will beat the Saints. Split with them. Buffalo. I think the Jets beat Buffalo. The Lions beat Chicago. I say Cleveland beats the Browns. Denver beats Chargers. I say Houston beats Indiana. Tennessee beats Jacksonville. Rams beat the Cardinals. Raiders win against the Chiefs. I think Green Bay beats Minnesota. Miami versus New England. I think Miami wins that one. Then Dallas beating the Giants. Washington beating Philly. Baltimore beating Pittsburgh. Actually, I'm going to give Pittsburgh the win here. Or maybe Baltimore. I think one more of that is going to be very good. Then Seattle versus San Francisco. Okay. And then Carolina versus Tampa Bay. Okay, sounds good. And this is the standings. And this is where we stand. The Bills win the division 9-8. Then followed by the Patriots 8-9, Jets 7-10, Dolphins 6-11. AFC North, we had the Bengals winning 10-7, 9-8 for the Ravens, 89 for the Steelers, 7-10 for the Browns. Then for the Texans, AFC South 9-8, 8-9 for Titans, 7-10 for the Colts, and 6-11 for the Jaguars. For the West, Broncos win 11-6, followed by Chiefs 10-7, Raiders 8-9, and Chargers 7-10. NFC East is 11-6 for the Commanders, 10-10 for the Eagles, 7-10 for the Giants and Cowboys. And the NFC North is tied for first place versus the Vikings and the Lions, followed by the Packers 9-8 and Bears 7-10. In the NFC South, the Falcons win the division 10-7, followed by the Bucks 9-8 and the Panthers 7-10, alongside the Saints 7-10. Then in the NFC West, the 49ers win 10-6, then followed by the Rams 10-7. Then the Seahawks 9-8 and Cardinals 8-9. Now let's predict the playoffs. So The Eagles at the 49ers. Who wins this matchup here? I say the 49ers. They get the edge here and beat the Eagles. Then you have Lions at the Falcons. The first playoff game in Mercedes-Benz. I think we win that one. Then Vikings versus Rams. I think the Vikings win that one. In the AFC, Patriots versus Bengals. I say the Patriots get the surprise upset. Then Texans versus Ravens. I think the Texans gets a win here. Then Chiefs versus Bills. I think the Bills win, get the edge. Then Patriots versus Broncos. I say the Broncos win that one. But I would love to see the Patriots try and win. Then you have the Bills versus Texans. I think the Bills win that one. In the NFC, Commanders versus Vikings. Who wins? I say the Commanders win. Then you have Falcons versus 49ers. They beat us in the first matchup. I think we get our revenge. Then conference championship. Broncos versus Bills. Who wins? The Bills beat the Broncos. The first time they met in the playoffs, I think the Broncos get the edge here. Then Falcons at the Commanders. I gotta say my Falcons. And then we have Super Bowl, a rematch of the 1998 matchup. In our first Super Bowl, John Elway beat the Falcons. And you already know. We're winning the Super Bowl. I love my Falcons. I gotta believe it. We win Super Bowl 60. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Falcons are the winners. And here I'll look at the standings. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for tuning into my first live stream in like 2 years. If you're not already, please like and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed today's game. Cowboys versus Eagles. Unfortunately, I will not be streaming any Falcons games, but I will be posting the game previews and reviews like usual. So stick around for that. Again, thank you guys for watching this one. Thanks for tuning in. This is Down Falcons fan signing out. Until next time, peace out and rise up, Falcon Nation. This is our year, and we're going to win the Super Bowl. Peace out.